crazy to say that horror movies saved my life, but they really gave me something to do that year.
I think I should start by saying this video was really hard for me to make. I wasn't planning on opening a part of my life that, I don't like to talk about. And not because I had a really terrible life or anything like that, but when I was deciding what to do my next video on, I discovered this connection between what I was feeling and what I was watching, and I wanted to share.
Horror is one of my favorite genres. It's been filmed since the dawn of movies. Till this day, we still have very, very talented directors and artists putting their work and their time into creating horror movies that scare the living crap out of people for fun. I love it. In Hollywood, horror is easy to make and extremely profitable. The Exorcist in the 70s only took $12 million to make and has grossed over $200 million. Even today, The Conjuring, for another example, only cost $20 million to produce, also made over $200 million. Whereas you can compare that to, let's say, the first Iron Man movie, which cost over $186 million to make. Its profits were only around $400 million.
Bye.
There has been a ridiculous outflow of shitty horror movies because they're easy and cheap. Diving into why consumers love horror movies is a whole nother video. Today I really just want to talk about why I love horror movies. And I know I could be selfish, but just hear me out. To really tell this story, I'm going to need to give you a little bit of backstory. I have to start with my relationship with my dad. I really disliked him for a long time. I didn't think he really participated in the fatherly activities that I observed my friends' fathers doing, but he's a pastor. That was his life. My dad took me to the movies, which is probably why I have such a deep-seated love for film. Now, since my dad is a pastor, we moved a lot. When I was 7, we moved from my home, New York, to New Jersey. Spent some time there, I made friends, and when I was 13, we moved all the way to Louisiana. In Louisiana, I spent my formative years bouncing from school to school. In high school, I switched schools every single year. The worst of it was my sophomore year. I spent the year trying to build whatever relationships I could while trying to maintain the relationships I had made my freshman year at the previous school. I even had a girlfriend, my first girlfriend. I was actively involved in speech and debate, which was something I loved throughout my high school career.
Well, it doesn't sound so bad. Oh my God, Taylor Swift just broke up with her boyfriend! That means there's gonna be a new album!
Even with all that going on, I already was conscious of my parents' decision to move to Texas the end of that year, which hurt, but part of me had accepted it because Texas is the biggest state for speech and debate, and I was excited because of the potential that I had there. And I remember the night so vividly, getting the call from my dad saying that actually we're moving to Rhode Island.
You left yourself open, Dad.
So I was 16 years old, and not only did I lose all of my friends again, my first girlfriend, but I lost speech and debate. And that really hurt, really hurt. I was the middle child, right in the middle. My younger brother is 4 years younger than me, and my older brother is 4 years older than me. So I didn't really have siblings as friends. So my junior year of high school, all I had was movies. Specifically, horror movies. I was 16 years old with no friends. I was homeschooling because I was so depressed and had no energy or desire to make any friends. All I did was watch movies. I watched all the classics. I mean, Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, Evil Dead, The Omen, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lambs was one of my favorites. For the first time in my life, I never before then had I had the opportunity to watch these movies, and all of a sudden they were my favorite.
That expires in 1 week. You're not real FBI, are you?
It's crazy to think that year was also the release of one of my favorite video games of all time, The Last of Us, which fits right into this horror niche I was in.
There's a little girl. But... Yes, sir.
Somebody, we've just been through hell. Okay, we just need...
This game is about Joel, a father who lost his daughter in the wake of a spreading infection, pretty much the zombie apocalypse. This game is for real an emotional journey from start to finish, and I loved it. I still love everything about it. And looking back on my time in that part of my life, I'm realizing how much this game really, really means to me, because Joel and Ellie, they were my spirit humans, I guess. Not only was I going through their tough journey, but when they were crying, I was crying. It was a connection which fits right into this horrifying scene of my life where I'm alone and I'm isolated.
I never thought at the time, or never expected my depression to have been linked with my desire to watch horror movies, but looking back on it, I mean, it just kind of makes sense. Watching Ash in The Evil Dead kill all his demon zombie friends as they're coming back to life, or the priest in The Exorcist as he's battling this demon, trying to cast it out, something that is so challenging, or something that he just needs to overcome. It all made sense in correlation with what I was going through, with these problems I had to overcome, this loneliness, this loneliness that is exhibited in the horror of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just being isolated from your friends, being alone, being chased by this monster, which for me at the time was the idea of suicide and the idea of having nothing to live for. There was one friend I managed to keep up with, Zach. At one point during that year, my junior year, when I was 16, I got to go visit Zach, and we actually just binged horror movies the whole time. We watched Hellraiser 1 and 2. We watched The Evil Dead and The Evil Dead remake. We watched the Paranormal Activity movies, The Conjuring, Insidious. I mean, we watched movies all night long, and I had really stopped going to the movies with my dad because I was so mad at him when he was going to see a movie that was playing at the same time as Oculus, which, if you're not familiar, is one of Mike Flanagan's great horror movies. I hadn't told my dad about it before we got to the theater, but when we got there, I let him know, listen, I'm going to see this other movie. I'll pay for it if you don't want me to go see it, but I'm going. At that point, kind of had just given up, and he let me go see it, even though he had opposed to it for sure. I remember sitting right in the middle of the theater. I was there about 20 minutes early, so I got to pick my seat. people started filling into the theater, and I actually had got squished in between two different groups of girls. I was thinking to myself, I really, really hope this movie's scary because I might get lucky. I get really anxious when I have nobody, and then sometimes when I'm surrounded by my friends, I still feel very alone. I find it hard to really build lasting friendships because of all of that, and because of having to lose all of my friends before we had really time to form something that was gonna last. But movies have always been there.
I guess I wanted to tell this story because it's also sort of the origin story of this page. That year, by myself in Rhode Island, I started a YouTube channel where I reviewed movies.
And today, I'll be reviewing Oculus. Welcome to the show.
And I got embarrassed and deleted it all. I never expected to be telling this story, but here I am. And thank you so much for listening, because all of you make this so much more fun. So thank you.
I love horror movies.